Hi, this is Gay, and I'll be reading today's edition of the Cape Cod Times for Wednesday, June 12th, 2024. We'll start with the weather. Today it'll be partly sunny, high temperature 73. Tonight, mainly clear, lows will be 61. Tomorrow, it'll be mostly sunny, pleasant, breezy in the afternoon with high temperature 78 degrees. Low in the evening, 65 degrees. On Friday, it'll be breezy, a little more humid, a little bit more cloudy. An afternoon thunderstorm is expected. High temperature 79, low 65. Saturday, it will be breezy in the morning with clouds and sun throughout the day. High temperature 74, 56 in the evening. And on Sunday, you can expect it to be really nice Father's Day with plenty of sunshine. High temperature 74, low 57. The sun rose this morning at 5:06 a.m. and will set tonight at 8:16 p.m. That's 15 hours and 10 minutes of daylight. Now for the lottery numbers. We'll start with the numbers game. Drawing for Tuesday, June 11th, 2024. Midday drawing numbers 0, 7, 4, 0. That's 0, 7, 4, 0. Midday drawing for the numbers game for Tuesday, June 11th. The evening drawing numbers 7, 1, 7, 7. That's 7, 1, 7, 7. Evening drawing for the numbers game for Tuesday, June 11th, 2024. Lucky for life numbers for Tuesday, June 11th, 12, 23, 31, 44, 48, bonus number of 8. Lucky for life numbers for Tuesday, June 11th again, 12, 23, 31, 44, 48, bonus number of 8, Tuesday, June 11th, 2024, lucky for life. The mass cash numbers for Tuesday, June 11th, 2, 4, 20, 23, 24. That's 2, 4, 20, 23, 24. Mass cash numbers for Tuesday, June 11th, 2024. And the Mega Millions drawing for Tuesday, June 11th, 1, 5, 7, 22, 24, bonus number of 8. That's 1, 5, 7, 22, 24, bonus number of 8, the Mega Millions drawing for Tuesday, June 11th, 2024. Now to the stories on the front page. Man testifies against former priest accused of rape in trial by Zain Razak. Cape Cod Times, USA Today Network. Barnstable. A 36-year-old man testified on Tuesday morning in Barnstable Superior Court that he was sexually abused by a former Cape Cod priest while working on a science class project at the church. He said he was about 13 in the spring of 2002 when he was seated at the table in Our Lady of Victory in Centerville, completing a report about a classic egg drop experiment. Then priest Mark Hession sat beside him and put his hand on top of his shorts, then placed his hand underneath his shorts to stroke his penis, he said. I didn't know what feeling I was feeling at the time, said the 36-year-old man. It was a weird feeling of enjoyment because my body was naturally enjoying it, but I was not, so I was confused. Hession, who served as the church parish priest from 2000 to 2014, faces 2 counts of rape alleged to have happened between 2005 and 2009, and 1 count of indecent assault and battery on a child under 14 alleged to have happened sometime in 2002. A count of intimidating a witness was dropped. He pleaded not guilty to the charges in January of 2021. Tuesday was the first day of testimony in the jury trial. The Times does not identify an accuser unless that person has given permission to be identified. The closest thing to God. The accuser said Hession also raped him, saying he was forced to receive and perform oral sex. At the time, he never told anyone about the alleged abuse, saying he trusted Hession and calling Hession the closest thing to God. He explained this is part of boy time, the man testified. Before the accuser took the stand, attorneys on both sides gave their opening statements to a jury of 7 women and 8 men. At the time, the man, as a 13-year-old, lived with his grandmother, who worked at the church as a secretary, while his mother and stepfather struggled with substance abuse. He went to the church after school and stayed for hours doing homework while his grandmother worked. The defendant told the boy the alleged abuse was normal, said Cape and Islands Assistant District Attorney Alexandra Halpern Isaacs. For years, the defendant manipulated the boy, Isaacs told the jury. He told him that he could go to hell. He told him that he was powerful and knew a lot of powerful people. And the defendant told the boy that no one would believe him, she said. Defense, simply not true. Paolo G. Corso, Hession's defense attorney, said his client vehemently denied the allegations. The accusations against Mr. Hession are false. They did not happen, and they are simply not true, said Corso. The man making the allegations performed odd jobs at the church as a volunteer before he was hired as a maintenance person, beginning in 2008 until 2011, Corso said. Both the accuser and his grandmother were later fired from the church, said Corso. The jury will hear the reasons for their termination, but it certainly has nothing to do with the allegations that are presented here today, said Corso. Corso alleged that the accusations stem from the accuser's financial struggles, saying that's why we're here, for money. He also pointed to what he called inconsistencies with the accuser's story. He said the first time the man reported the alleged 2002 assault in October 2018, he said he was 18 at the time. Then, a year later, in September 2019, Corso alleged the accuser reports the incident to the police and said he was 15, before later saying he was 13 in December 2019 and giving much more detail. As you listen to his versions, as you listen to the different stories, I implore you to think that the hardest thing to keep track of is a lie, said Corso. Hession is also represented by Frank C. Corso. Both lawyers are from Corso Law, LLC. A trial expected to take 5 to 6 days. Judge Mark C. Galdea is presiding over the matter. He previously said attorneys on both sides estimate it could take 5 to 6 days to try this case and present all the evidence. Hession is on a 2021 list compiled by the Roman Catholic Diocese of Fall River of publicly accused religious leaders connected to the diocese. The publicly accused list means that the religious leaders have been publicly named in media reports, third-party lists prepared by advocacy groups and or other dioceses and religious orders as having allegations against them involving sexual abuse of a minor. For a name to appear on the publicly accused list, the Diocese of Fall River lacks sufficient information to make its own determination whether the accusation was credible, according to the diocese. Who is Mark Hession? Hession was ordained in 1984. In 2009, he delivered the homily at the funeral for U.S. Senator Edward M. Kennedy in Boston. Hession served at 12 different institutions in the Cape Cod and Fall River areas. On the Cape, besides Our Lady of Victory, Hession served at Our Lady of Assumption in Osterville, St. Joan of Arc Church in Orleans, and St. Patrick Church in Falmouth, according to the Diocese of Fall River. Off Cape, he served at St. Patrick Parish in Wareham, Holy Name Church and Holy Rosary Chapel, both in Fall River, St. Mary's Parish in New Bedford, Charlton Memorial Hospital in Fall River, St. Joseph Church in Taunton, Our Lady of Mount Carmel in Seekonk, and Holy Family Parish in East Taunton. He has been suspended from active priestly ministry by the Diocese of Fall River since 2019. That move came after parishioners of Our Lady of Mount Carmel in Seekonk complained that he had sent inappropriate communications, according to previous reporting by the Times. The diocese said then in a statement that Hession was placed on leave because of conduct inconsistent with standards of ministerial behavior and in direct violation of the Code of Conduct for Priests. Our next story is from Sandwich. Sandwich in Fire sends one to hospital for smoke inhalation by Denise Coffey, Cape Cod Times, USA Today Network. Sandwich. The historic Daniel Webster Inn and Spa in Sandwich was the site of a two-alarm fire Monday night. All occupants were evacuated and accounted for, according to a statement from Sandwich Fire Chief John Burke. One person was treated and transported to Cape Cod Hospital in Hyannis for smoke inhalation. A call to the inn Tuesday morning was answered by a staff member who referred callers to the manager of the inn. The managers were not immediately available. The cause of the fire is currently under investigation by the Sandwich Fire Department and Massachusetts State Police assigned to the State Fire Marshal's Office. Second alarm sounded. Firefighters responded to a call after a front desk clerk spotted the fire on security cameras, according to Burke's statement. The call came in at 12:54 a.m., and the first engine arrived on the scene 2 minutes later. The fire was outside the kitchen area at the back of the building and spreading up its side, according to the statement. A second alarm brought additional units from Bourne, Joint Base Cape Cod, Plymouth, West Barnstable, and Barnstable fire departments to the scene. In total, 35 firefighters responded to fight the blaze. The fire was under control by 1:25 a.m., and the inn is at 149 Main Street. Also in Sandwich, How People Track the Man Accused of Robbing a Sandwich Bank by Walker Armstrong, Cape Cod Times, USA Today Network. The Onset man, suspected of robbing the Cooperative Bank of Cape Cod in Sandwich on June 5th, was arraigned on charges of unarmed robbery the following day, court documents show, after being arrested near a CVS in Wareham with at least $850 that police say was seized from the bank. Thomas Brand, 44, was taken into custody without incident June 6th and pleaded not guilty to all charges in Barnstable District Court. Brand was ordered held in the Barnstable County Correctional Facility in lieu of posting $10,000 cash bail. Detectives used various investigative tools to identify Brand as a suspect, noting his criminal history involving bank robberies. Surveillance on Thursday revealed Brand in possession of a significant amount of cash at a CVS in Wareham, police said, where he used approximately $850 in cash for transactions. What happened at the Cooperative Bank of Cape Cod on June 5th? At approximately 3:55 p.m. on June 5th, Sandwich police responded to a commercial panic alarm at the Cooperative Bank of Cape Cod. Upon arrival, officers spoke to dispatch, who relayed that a teller inside the bank confirmed a robbery had taken place. A bank employee exited the building shortly after and informed officers that the suspect had left and 3 employees remained inside. The employee confirmed no injuries and reported the suspect had entered and exited through the main doors heading north on Cotuit Road. Mashpee Police Department's canine officer tracked the suspect's scent to a location near Graziella's Pizza. Another bank employee described the suspect as a white male, approximately 5'7", with a bulky build, wearing an all-navy blue outfit, a neon green vest, a hat, sunglasses, and boots. The suspect reportedly demanded money while keeping his face covered, leaving with approximately $6,500. Other employees corroborated the description, noting the suspect's loud demands and quick exit. Surveillance footage obtained from both the bank and a nearby business, Color Me Crazy, showed a male suspect wearing a blue jacket with a logo and a neon green vest carrying a red bag. The footage also captured a vehicle, identified as a brown 2006 Jeep Liberty, which was later linked to Brand. Our next story is from Buzzards Bay. Kintal withstands school board recount Monday morning by Paul Gately, special to the Cape Cod Times, Buzzards Bay. A 2-hour recount of the May 21st school committee write-in votes got underway Monday morning in the town hall basement at Perry Avenue, but in the end the election results did not change. There were 2 open seats for the school committee at the town election, but only one person, Carrie McRae, filed nomination papers to be on the ballot. Following the election, 3 write-in candidates for the second seat emerged. Town Clerk Barry Johnson at 12:30 p.m. announced final results of the recount. Kathleen Kintal was again declared the school board write-in winner with 281 votes, followed by Margaret Barrio, 244 votes, and Joshua McMahon with 202. McMahon formally requested the recount. McRae, a school committee incumbent, tallied 680 votes. Kintal, meanwhile, had previously been sworn into office and attended her first board meeting last week. McMahon picked up 2 votes, Johnson said. The votes were inspected, with particular attention paid to ballots in which write-in stickers might have been inadvertently or not placed over the oval that had to be darkened for the vote to count. There were 7 challenges by McMahon observers that were handled by the town Board of Registrars. As a reminder, you are listening to the Cape Cod Times, Wednesday, June 12th, 24 edition. From the USA Today Network, FDA panel backs Lilly's Alzheimer's treatment by Ken L. Tucker. A Food and Drug Administration advisory panel on Monday endorsed the experimental Alzheimer drug donanemab, which studies showed slowed early stages of the fatal mind-robbing disease. The recommendation came despite pointed questions from advisory committee members about the potential side effects of Eli Lilly's drug, an antibody that removes beta amyloid that accumulates in the brains of patients with Alzheimer's disease. The FDA is not compelled to follow the recommendation of the advisory committee of outside expert, but it often does so. A notable exception was when the advisory committee recommended the agency reject Biogen's amyloid-clearing drug aducanumab, yet the FDA in 2021 approved the drug. Biogen halted sales and gave up ownership of the drug earlier this year. During the FDA's Peripheral and Central Nervous System Advisory Committee hearing on Monday, officials at Eli Lilly said clinical trials show the drug slowed cognitive and functional decline for people with early stages of the disease. The advisory committee unanimously agreed the studies showed that donanemab was effective at treating people with an early stage of Alzheimer's disease, a stage known as mild cognitive impairment. The panel also said the benefits of the drug outweighed potential risks for people with early stages of the disease. Last July, a study published in the Journal of American Medical Association reported Eli Lilly's Alzheimer drug slowed decline by 35% compared with the placebo group based on a measure of daily activities such as driving, managing finances, and talking about current events. Like other drugs that target and clear amyloid from the brain, studies showed donanemab had side effects that included brain swelling and tiny bleeds that could be detected via MRI. During Monday's hearing, Eli Lilly officials said people taking it had a slightly higher rate of MRI visible injuries, known as amyloid-related imaging abnormalities, ARIA, compared with people who took a placebo. Most people who had serious reactions to the drug tended to get them during the first 6 drug infusions, and they decreased over time, Lilly experts said. Several panel members questioned Eli Lilly experts about the higher risk faced by some patients who carried 2 copies of the Alzheimer's susceptibility gene, APOE4. Along with a higher risk of side effects, these patients also appeared to benefit less from the drug, some panel members said. Other members of the panel urged Eli Lilly to continue to study the impact of the drug on Black and Hispanic patients, people with Down syndrome, and others with a known family risk for the disease. Raisa Sperling, a professor in neurology at Harvard Medical School, testified about the benefits and risks of the drug. She said it's critical to inform doctors that they should monitor for potential side effects and for doctors to discuss with patients the potential risks and benefits of the drug. She also said side effects are inherent with amyloid-clearing drugs, which appear to be the best-known way to slow Alzheimer's disease progression. We haven't yet hit the full home run, Sperling said, but right now it is critical to do whatever we can to have an impact to slow this terrible, inexorably progressive disease and allow older people to be able to enjoy this time with their families. In local sports, ranking Cape Cod and Islands' top high school baseball teams by Courtney Jacobs, Cape Cod Times USA Today Network. The Cape and Islands represented well in the MIAA state tournament with 10 teams. 3 of those double-digit teams made the round of 8. Barnstable, Atlantic, and St. John Paul II, Lighthouse, were Cape and Islands League champions in their respective divisions. The final rankings list will be a little different from the first 2 because it will include how teams performed in the postseason. Presenting the final Cape Cod High School baseball rankings, number 1, Sandwich, 16-7 and 1. The number 12, Division III, Blue Knights, were one of those 3 teams that made the Elite 8. They came up just short in a pitcher's duel as number 4, Apponequet, won 1-0. Matthew Taylor threw 14 strikeouts for the Blue Knights in the loss. They recorded 2 wins in the postseason over number 21 Taconic, 10-0, in the round of 32, and number 37, Belchertown, 6-1 in the round of 16. Braden Ramsey, Jack Mulcahy, Matt Sullivan, Ty Crichton, Casey Woodall, Connor Finn, and Joe Coughlin have been some key players at the plate and on the mound for Sandwich's success this season. Number 2, Bourne, 16-8. The Canalmen entered the postseason as the defending Division 5 state champs, but had a regular season record of 3-17. That didn't matter, as Bourne finished the playoffs with the most wins from any Cape and Islands team with 3. They defeated number 42 Gateway Regional 10-0 in the preliminary round, thanks to a no-hitter from Griffin Kelly. The number 23 Canalmen then went on to the road to upset number 10 Westport, 6-3 in the round of 32, behind more solid pitching, this time from Luca Finton. They didn't stop there, as they won their 8th straight playoff game dating back to last season with a 6-3 over number 26 Mount Greylock Regional in the round of 16. Their season finally ended in the Elite 8 as number 15 Greenfield beat them 7-3. Ty Kelly, Bryce Young, Ryan Sullivan, Trevor Billard, Tobin Johnston, Finton, and Kelly were some of the leaders for the Canalmen this season. Number 3, Dennis Yarmouth, 12-13. The Dolphins had one of the tougher schedules on the Cape and Islands, which presented them for a solid playoff run. The number 18 seeded DY started off the postseason on the road with a 3-1 upset win over number 15 Hamilton Wyndham in the round of 32. In the next round, they did even better with a bigger upset win as they defeated number 2 Uxbridge 11-2 in the round of 16. The Dolphins' run finally came to a close. They just came up short in the round of 8 as number 10 East Bridgewater won 2-1. Alex Finn, Gavin Delsey, Hudson Campbell, John Richmond, Lincoln Slade, R.J. Delcourt, and Trey McPherson are some of the key Dolphins players. Number 4, Nauset, 15-7-4. The number 16 Warriors didn't make it to the round of 8 like the teams above them, but they were the only team that made it to the round of 16 in Division 3. The Warriors hosted their round of 32 game, which led to a 3-2 victory over 17 Newburyport. In the next fight, they pull up a solid effort on the road against the top seed, but Oakmont Regional won 3-0. Ryan O'Keefe, Chase Beach, Ethan Beer, Evan Archer, Jake Doherty, James Breda, Kieran Hanville, and Brody Bassett have paced the Warriors this season. Number 5, St. John Paul II, 16-6-2. The Lions were the only top 10 ranked team in the playoffs as the number 9 seed in Division 5. They were upset in the first round of the playoffs as number 24 Salem beat the Lions 4-3. Despite an early exit in the postseason, the Lions had a good overall season. They were the Cape and Islands Lighthouse Division champs, and they had some wins over solid teams during the regular season. Logan Orr was named the league MVP, but the Lions also had help from Tyler Ross, Hunter Alton, Connor Buckley, Drew Richards, Henry Roy, Brian Machinelli, Brady Meyer, Colin Buckley, Max Ingraham, Tim Cronin, and Brandon Gomes. Number 6, Barnstable, 14-7-3. The Cape and Islands Atlantic Division champs were also upset at home in the first round of the playoffs, as number 20 Weymouth won 4-0 over the number 12 Redhawks. Barnstable was led by league MVP Sladen Johnson, who was effective on the mound and at the plate, but they also had contributions from Eric Stanley, Jack Tarbox, Luke Harmon, Reed Buckley, Anthony Giacomo, Owen Jones, Josh Hunter, and Jake Cross. And number 7, Upper Cape, 21-3-5. Upper Cape picked up a win in the playoffs as they beat number 38 Maimonides 11-1 in Division 3 preliminary round at home. The number 27 Rams season came to an end in the next round as number 6 Pittsfield beat them 2-1 in the round of 32. After the playoffs, they defeated Smith Voc Aggie 8-2 in the state vocational championship. They also won the Mayflower League championship. The pitching led Upper Cape this season with pitchers like Tyler Kudel, Jared Coates, Nolan Roche, and Devin Schultz. Roche, Logan Ewell, Mitchell Kirkland, Nate Smith, Harrison Gargan, Jacob Allen and Patrick Accord have been good at the plate also for Upper Cape. Honorable mention, Monomoy 12-10. The number 26 Sharks won their Division IV preliminary round matchup against number 39 Cathedral 10-0. They came up short in the next round as number 7 Millbury won 6-0. Casey Hughes, Chase Robbins, Finn Hoya, Gareth Voss, Rain Stevens, and Trey Nunes were some of the key players for Monomoy this season. Mashpee 9-13. The number 29 Falcons started their playoff run with a 20-run game as they defeated number 36 Smith Vocational 20-7 in the Division IV prelims. They faced number 10 Seekonk next, and Seekonk went on to win 10-0. Gavin Lakatos, Michael McGrail, Jason Merkman, Andrew Fancer, Brody James, Nick Skoulos, and Nick Robillard were some of the consistent players for Mashpee. And Cape Tech 13-9. The number 32 Crusaders kicked off their season with a rain postponement and had to wait 3 days to play again after the game was tied 2-2 in the second inning. Cape Tech went on to finish the game with a 4-3 win over number 33 Athol in the Division V prelims. This was the Crusaders' first playoff win in 13 years and their best overall record in over a decade, since 2012. In the next round, the top-seeded Georgetown beat them 11-0. Aiden Torrey, Eric Emond, Jack Rhodes, Jake Ambrosini, Mason Tomlinson, Matt Riker, Nolan Baker, and Trevor Rione were the key pieces to success this season. Well, we have reached the halfway point in our broadcast of today's edition of the Cape Cod Times for Wednesday, June 12th, 2024, and it's time for the obituaries. We have several today. The first one, David Thomas Roche, Jr., South Dennis. David T. Roche, Jr. of South Dennis passed away on June 6, 2024, after a courageous battle with cancer. He was raised in South Dennis and graduated from Dennis Yarmouth Regional High School. David was born on July 16, 1963. He married his soulmate, Laura Spagnolo Roche, in 2022. David is survived by many family members who will greatly miss him. In lieu of flowers, donations can be made to the American Cancer Society that supports life-saving research, treatment, and care. Their website for the donation is donate.cancer.org. Beverly K. Fernhaber, South Chatham. Beverly Kulikowski Fernhaber, age 88, of South Chatham, Massachusetts, formerly of Avon, Connecticut, passed away peacefully on Saturday, June 8, 2024. Born in Hartford, Connecticut, she was raised in the neighboring town of Avon. After graduating from Mount St. Joseph Academy in West Hartford, Beverly reconnected with an old elementary school friend, Charles Fernhaber. After Charles completed his military service overseas, Beverly and Charles started dating, and the rest is history. Beverly embarked on her professional journey in the insurance industry, working at Connecticut Mutual. Her career path took a vibrant turn as she became a travel agent. Eventually, Beverly chose to focus on her family, and her family would spend summer vacations throughout the years on Cape Cod, eventually purchasing their own home in Chatham in the early 80s. Beverly was very dedicated at the Cape Cod Museum of Natural History. Beverly and her husband were also active in the German American Club of Cape Cod, Elder Services of Cape Cod, and Beverly was a member of the Holy Redeemer Women's Club. Beverly leaves behind numerous family members who will greatly miss her. A visitation for Beverly will be held Thursday, June 20th, 2024, from 10 to 11 at Our Lady of Grace Catholic Church, Route 137, South Chatham, followed by a funeral mass in her honor at 11 a.m. Additional services will also be held in Beverly's memory in Connecticut. In lieu of flowers, donations in Beverly's memory may be made to the Cape Cod Museum of Natural History. For online condolences and notifications for upcoming services, please visit www.nickersonfunerals.com. Farrell M. Kane, New Paltz, New York. Farrell Martin Kane, 91, passed away peacefully on June 10, 2024, after a short illness, surrounded by his loving family. Farrell was born in Staten Island, New York, on November 21, 1932. He is survived by a large family who love him very much. Farrell attended St. Peter's High School for Boys on Staten Island and graduated from Manhattan College. Farrell and his wife Kathleen were married in the Bronx in 1961. They raised their families on Staten Island and retired to Cape Cod in 1991. They recently moved to New Paltz, New York to be closer to family. Farrell was a kind and loving man who spent much of his free time in service to others, both on Staten Island and Cape Cod. Along with his long career at Citicorp and service in the U.S. Army, he served as scoutmaster for his son's troop, treasurer for the Jacques Marchais Museum of Tibetan Art on Staten Island, a docent at the French Cable Museum, and delivered meals for Meals on Wheels, and president of the Lower Cape Outreach Council on Cape Cod. Farrell and Kathleen were active in the Orleans Yacht Club and in the Nauset Newcomers on Cape Cod. On Cape Cod, he was a member of St. Joan of Arc Parish and more recently attended St. Joseph's Church in New Paltz, New York. Calling hours will be 4 to 7 p.m. on Wednesday, today, June 12th, at Sweet's Funeral Home, Route 9, Hyde Park, New York. A Mass of Christian burial will be celebrated at 10 a.m. on Thursday, June 13th, at Regina Coeli Church, Route 9, Hyde Park. Gravesite services and burial will be 12:30 p.m. this Friday, June 14th, at Woodside Cemetery, Yarmouthport, Mass. In lieu of flowers, the Kane family respectfully requests memorial donations to the Lower Cape Outreach Council, 19 Brewster Cross Road, Orleans, Mass. 02653. To send an online condolence or for directions, please visit Farrell's obituary page at www.sweetsfuneralhome.com. Richard Bruce Perkins, Jr., Center Barnstead. Richard Bruce Perkins, Jr., 60, of Center Barnstead, New Hampshire, passed away suddenly while working in his yard on Thursday, June 5th. His beloved dog Rummy was by his side. Rich graduated from Nauset Regional High School in Eastham in 1982. He continued his education at Massachusetts Maritime Academy, graduating with a degree of Bachelor of Science in Marine Engineering in 1986. Upon his graduation, Rich accepted a commission in the Navy as an ensign before continuing his career in the Merchant Marines. He went on to become a chief engineer, licensed for both diesel and steam engines. Rich wrapped up his career on land, working as an engineer for the Falmouth Water Department on Cape Cod, and eventually building his dream home and retiring to New Hampshire. Rich is survived by many family members who will miss his long phone calls to relatives. Visitation will be held at Nickerson Funeral Home in Orleans on June 19th from 11 to 1, followed by a graveside service at Brewster Cemetery. Rich enjoyed donating to charities and was always willing to help someone if he could. In lieu of flowers, memorial donations may be made to the Wounded Warriors Organization, Tunnel to Towers Foundation, or a charity of one's choice. For online condolences, please visit www.nickersonfunerals.com. Barbara Ann Cazalt, Osterville. Barbara Ann Cazalt, Clapp of Osterville and Inverness, Florida, passed away peacefully on June 7th at the age of 85, leaving behind a legacy of love and cherished memories. Born in Weymouth, Barbara graduated from Weymouth High School. Moving to Osterville in the late 70s, Barbara was affectionately known as the plant lady at the local A&P. Later, she became actively involved in the family roofing business, Paul J. Cazalt and Sons Roofing. Predeceased by her husband of 64 years, Paul J. Cazalt, Barbara is survived by many family members who brought immense joy to her life. In lieu of flowers, those who wish to make a contribution in her memory may consider donating to the Osterville Garden Club. A celebration of life for Barbara will be held at 11:30 this Friday, June 14th, at the West End Restaurant located at 20 Scudder Avenue in Hyannis. And that concludes our obituaries for today. I'd like to thank all the veterans for their service. And now, back to our stories. Biden speaks on gun safety. Son's firearm conviction preceded address. Trevor Honeycutt and Andrea Salau. Reuters. Washington. President Joe Biden showcased his administration's efforts to cut down on illegal gun trafficking and reduce crime at Gun Violence Prevention Summit on Tuesday, just hours after his son Hunter was convicted of lying about his drug use to illegally buy a gun. Biden issued a written statement saying he accepted the outcome of the case but did not address the issue during an address on Tuesday to survivors of gun violence, mayors, parents, and educators. Biden was set to return to Wilmington, Delaware later in the day to be with his son. Biden praised the survivors of gun violence for their determination not to focus on their anger, but on what they can do to prevent more tragedies. Through their word and actions, Biden said the survivors ensure that all victims of gun violence are not forgotten. They didn't die in vain. The Democratic president, facing a tough battle against former President Donald Trump to win a second term in the November presidential election, highlighted his administration's effort to reduce crime ahead of the 2-year anniversary of the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. The act was created in the wake of a massacre at Texas elementary school and a New York supermarket. It established new criminal offenses for the straw purchasing of firearms by buyers who lie about the gun's intended owner, among other provisions. The Department of Justice has charged more than 500 defendants with violating gun trafficking and straw purchasing provisions of a new gun safety law enacted 2 years ago, the White House announced on Tuesday. Biden hailed preliminary data released by the FBI, which showed that murders decreased by 26% in the first quarter of 2024, while robberies fell by almost 18%, and violent crime overall dropped by 15%. Biden's speech was interrupted by pro-Palestinian protesters. The crowd grew angry, but Biden urged patience, saying innocent children have been lost. Democrats are deeply divided over Biden's handling of the war in Gaza, and the president routinely faces protests at public events. The White House noted that the Trump administration saw the largest increase in murders ever recorded. Democrats largely favor stricter gun laws as a way to reduce deaths from gun violence at schools and in cities across the country. Republicans, with the support of the National Rifle Association, a guns rights group, largely oppose stricter laws, citing the right to bear arms established in the U.S. Constitution's Second Amendment. Trump, who last month won the endorsement of the nation's top guns rights group, has pledged to unravel gun regulations put in place by Biden. And from Reuters, proposal would ban medical debt from credit reports. Up to $49 billion could be removed under the plan, by Douglas Gillison. Millions of Americans would see medical debts vanished from their credit reports under pending regulations unveiled Tuesday, Vice President Kamala Harris announced. The proposed regulations, unveiled by the U.S. Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, come as the Biden administration works to tout its economic policies ahead of November's elections. The move would remove up to $49 billion in medical debts from the credit reports of 15 million Americans, according to the Bureau. Americans often face medical debt because services are not entirely covered by either private insurance or government health plans. State and local governments are also using coronavirus stimulus funds to eliminate $7 billion in medical debts held by nearly 3 million Americans, according to the Vice President's office. Medical debt makes it more difficult for millions of Americans to be approved for a car loan, a home loan, or small business loans, all of which in turn makes it more difficult to just get by, Harris told reporters. No one should be denied access to economic opportunity simply because they experienced a medical emergency. The proposal would result in an additional 22,000 home loan approvals per year once effective, according to Harris. As home ownership rates rise, racial minority groups are left behind, according to the National Association of Realtors. Black and Asian buyers are most likely to be rejected for a mortgage loan based on their debt-to-income ratio, NAR data showed. The proposal faces likely pushback from industry and Republican-led states who have challenged Biden administration's economic and environmental policies. A year ago, the U.S. Supreme Court blocked the administration's plans to cancel $430 billion in student loan debts, upending a key Biden campaign promise. Consumer Financial Protection Bureau Director Rohit Chopra is due to present the agency's semi-annual report to lawmakers later this week. Representative Patrick McHenry, the Republican chair of the House Financial Services Committee, which will hear Chopra's testimony on Thursday, decried Tuesday's announcement, saying the policy would raise costs and reduce the availability of credit. The CFPB's regulatory overreach will harm the very consumers the agency was created to protect, McHenry said in a statement. Officials at the agency have said that medical debt is a poor predictor of whether borrowers are likely to repay debts owed through credit cards, mortgages, and other loans. A senior agency official said the proposal would likely be finalized in early 2025. And you are listening to the June 12, 2024 edition of the Cape Cod Times. Our next story, most people in decades working 2 jobs. Longer work hours can hamper rest and recovery, by Ananya Tiwari and Cheryl Smith, Treasure Coast Newspapers, USA Today Network. At 6:30 a.m., Mary Dotsey starts work prepping and serving lunch to students at Sebastian River Middle School in Sebastian, Florida. At 1:30 p.m., she heads home to get ready for her next job, 30 minutes away in Vero Beach. At 4 p.m., she starts waiting tables at Ocean Grill 3 nights a week. She finally gets back home about 10 or later. Now, the 58-year-old Vero Lake Estates resident says she's considering a third job driving for Uber or Lyft on her only 2 weeknights off. I'm tired, she said countless times. I'm just buried. I make money, but I'm doggy paddling. Groceries, homeowners insurance, and car insurance is just so out of control. Bills are just the tip of the iceberg. A litany of unexpected expenses included a new used car, a home equity loan to replace her failed septic system, and financial assistance for her 2 daughters. The 19-year-old attends Indian River State College, and the 21-year-old in Georgia has medical bills. It doesn't end, Dotsey said. I literally just can't even take a few days off. Moonlighting hits record. Many people like Dotsey are working long hours at multiple jobs these days, even at the expense of their mental, physical, emotional, and social well-being. From coping with the high cost of living to supporting family members to becoming independent from their parents, they feel like they have no choice. More people worked multiple jobs in December than at any other time since 1994, a 13.5 increase to 8.6 million from 7.4 million, according to the Federal Reserve research based on the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics data. High inflation, remote work, fear of layoffs, and labor market seasonality were significant contributors to people taking multiple jobs post-pandemic, according to economists. Inflation rose to a 40-year high of 8.5% during the peak of the coronavirus pandemic in March of 2022, pushing people into multiple jobs even as the labor market was tight, according to experts. Florida rents increased 30 to 47% from 2021 to 2022, according to a 2022 rental market study by the University of Florida's Schimberg Center for Housing Studies. Treasure Coast rents averaged $2,378 in 2023, an increase between 3 and 17% from 2022 to 2023, according to a Smart Asset study. Over 34% of renters were cost-burdened as they spent over 40% of their income on housing, according to a 2024 Schimberg Center study. Methison Valier was one of those 21,674 cost-burden renters last year. The 27-year-old Port St. Lucie resident was working a full-time lawn care job when he added a part-time food delivery driver job to his day. Even with the DoorDash work, I was barely paying the bills, he said. Valier hoped to the new job he started in March as an HVAC technician would change his life for the better. If he performs well and passes his 3-month training period, he could make $60,000 to $100,000 annually and eventually quit DoorDash. But not yet, he said, even though it was adding stress to his life. I need to start saving money so I can move into my place, he said. Second job can impair health. Moonlighting can increase the risk of stress, insomnia, fatigue, exhaustion, anxiety, depression, social dysfunction, work-related accidents, and diseases such as stroke, obesity, diabetes, heart disease, acute infection, and high blood pressure, according to the Surgeon General, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and many peer-reviewed health studies. Working long hours hampers the rest and recovery time needed for healthy body functioning, said Chris Cunningham, a psychology professor and director of the Healthy Optimal Work Lab at the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. Most people can balance job demands, for 7 to 10 hours, after which they get depleted, he said. Stress and lack of rest make it difficult for the body to turn off its fight or flight response, according to Chelsea Lenoble, a University of Central Florida psychology professor. This can lower high-order cognitive functions such as reasoning, problem-solving, and decision-making. People can replenish their energy by getting adequate sleep, detaching from work, having social connections, and developing interests and hobbies unrelated to work, Cunningham said. Louis Raphael Conde learned that the hard way. The 20-year-old literally and figuratively got tired of working 2 part-time jobs after his family immigrated from Haiti to Port St. Lucie in 2022. As a prep cook for a catering company and a Creole interpreter for medical patients, he had to ride his bike or take a train to get around West Palm Beach, where he lived at the time. He made between $300 and $800 a month to supplement his family's income, including that of his father still in Haiti. My younger brother and I are just trying to help around as much as we can ourselves and figure out what we want to do with our lives, Conde said. In March, he was living with his mother in Port St. Lucie and working only 1 full-time job at Publix. Having found more peace and financial independence, he had no plans to move out or work over 40 hours a week again. I would have no personal life if I did that, he said. I'll figure it out. For Dotsie, a personal life of traveling, going to the beach, getting her nails done, and buying steak for dinner are distant memories. She longs to go to Universal Studios and Bok Tower Gardens again. We haven't done that in so long. I don't leave my house because I don't want to spend any money, she said. I don't have a life. I do stress out, she said, but she tries to live by the motto, I'll figure it out. So for now, she'll be working the summer school lunch shift and living on cereal, chicken, ramen noodles, and a pizza special of 2 slices for $10. I don't even get a drink anymore, she said. Instead of dwelling on the negative emotions that arise from her financial situation and lack of work-life balance, she says she tries to focus on being grateful for her family, her home, and her health. From Reuters, UN condemns violence against children in report by Michelle Nichols. United Nations. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres on Tuesday named and shamed Israel's security forces, Palestinian militant groups Hamas and Islamic Jihad, and Sudan's warring parties for killing and maiming children in 2023, adding them to an annual global list of offenders for violations against children. In a report to the UN Security Council seen by Reuters, Guterres also called out the armed forces of Israel and Sudan for attacking schools and hospitals, and Hamas and Islamic Jihad for abducting children. The paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, who have been fighting the Sudanese armed forces since April last year, was also named for recruiting and using children, committing rape and other sexual violence, and attacking schools and hospitals. The report, compiled by Guterres' envoy for children and armed conflict, Virginia Gamba, covers 6 grave violations: killing and maiming, sexual violence, abduction, recruitment and use, denial of aid, and attacks on schools and hospitals. The list attached to the report aims to shame parties to conflicts in the hope of pushing them to implement measures to protect children. It only reports on violence verified by the United Nations. In 2023, violence against children in armed conflict reached extreme levels, with a shocking 21% increase in grave violations, the report said. The number of instances of killing and maiming increased by a staggering 35%. The highest number of grave violations were verified in Israel and the occupied Palestinian territory, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Myanmar, Somalia, Nigeria, and Sudan, found the report, describing verification as extremely challenging. Russia's armed forces and affiliated groups stayed on the list after being added last year for killing and maiming children in Ukraine and attacking schools and hospitals. Russia's UN mission did not immediately respond to a request for comment, but Moscow has denied targeting civilians since it invaded Ukraine in 2022. Gaza, Sudan, and Ukraine. Israel's envoy, Gilad Erdan, said on Friday he had been notified that Israel's military had been added to the list, describing the decision as shameful. Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad could not immediately be reached for comment. The report attributed 5,698 violations to Israel's armed and security forces, 116 to Hamas, and 21 to Palestinian Islamic Jihad. The UN verified the killings of 2,267 Palestinian children, most in Gaza, between October 7th and December 31st, but said the process of determining attribution was ongoing, adding most incidents were caused by the use of explosive weapons in populated areas by Israeli armed and security forces. So far, it said Israel's armed and security forces were responsible for killing 206 children. The UN verified 136 violations against Israeli children, attributing 116 to Hamas. There were 371 verified attacks on schools and hospitals in 2023, of which Israel's forces were responsible for 340, according to the report. The UN also verified 5 instances of military use of ambulances by Israeli forces and one case where Hamas had used a health center for military purposes. In Sudan, the UN verified 1,721 violations, including the killing of 480 and maiming of 764, most during crossfire between the Sudanese armed forces and the Rapid Support Forces. It also verified 85 attacks on schools and hospitals. Sexual violence was verified against 114 girls in Sudan, of which the UN said the RSF was responsible for 57 cases. Sudan's armed forces and the RSF did not immediately respond to a request for comment. In Ukraine, the UN verified the killing of 80 children and maiming 339. Of those, it said Russian forces were responsible for killing 59 and maiming 228. It also attributed 249 attacks on schools and hospitals to Russian forces and 70 such attacks to the Ukrainian armed forces, who also used 2 schools and 1 hospital for military purposes. And from Reuters, Hamas response positive to U.S. ceasefire plan, but neither group nor Israel commit to deal, by Yayan Lubel and Nidal al-Mughrabi. Jerusalem, Cairo. Hamas on Wednesday said its positive response to a U.S. ceasefire plan for the 8-month-old war in the Gaza Strip opened a wide pathway to reach an agreement, but the outlook was uncertain as neither the Palestinian group nor Israel publicly committed to a deal. Hamas submitted its formal response on Tuesday to a proposal outlined by President Joe Biden on May 31st. Israel said the response was tantamount to a rejection, while a Hamas official said the Palestinian group merely reiterated long-standing demands not met by the current plan. Egypt and Qatar said they received Hamas's response but did not disclose the contents. Early on Wednesday, Izzat al-Rizq, a member of Hamas political bureau, said in a statement the group's answer was responsible, serious, and positive, and opens up a wide pathway for an accord. Another Hamas official, who declined to be identified, told Reuters on Tuesday the response reaffirmed the movement's stance that a ceasefire must lead to a permanent end to the hostilities in Gaza, withdrawal of Israeli forces, reconstruction of the Palestinian enclave, and release of Palestinian prisoners in Israel. We reiterated our previous stance. I believe there are no big gaps. The ball is now in the Israeli courtyard, the official said. The United States has said Israel accepted its proposal, but Israel has not publicly stated this, as Israel has continued assaults in central and southern Gaza that are amongst the bloodiest of the war. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has repeatedly said Israel would not commit to an end of its campaign in Gaza before Hamas is eliminated. An Israeli official said on Tuesday the country had received Hamas's answer via mediators and that Hamas changed all of the main and most meaningful parameters. The Israeli official, who spoke on condition of anonymity, said Hamas has rejected the proposal for a hostage release that was presented by President Biden. Earlier, a non-Israeli official briefed on the matter, who declined to be identified, said Hamas proposed a new timeline for a permanent ceasefire with Israel and withdrawal of Israeli troops from Gaza, including Rafah. The UN Security Council on Monday voted in favor of a U.S. resolution supporting the proposal outlined by Biden. Hamas official Sami Abu Zuri told Reuters on Tuesday that Hamas accepted the Security Council resolution and was ready to negotiate over the details of a ceasefire. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken in Tel Aviv to meet Israeli officials on Tuesday described the comments by Hamas as a hopeful sign, but said they were not conclusive. More important is the word coming from Gaza and from the Hamas leadership in Gaza. That's what counts, and that's what we don't have yet, Blinken told reporters in Tel Aviv. Ceasefire plan. Biden's proposal envisages a ceasefire and phased release of Israeli hostages in Gaza in exchange for Palestinians jailed in Israel, ultimately leading to a permanent end to the war. This would be a three-phase plan, starting with an initial 6-week ceasefire with an Israeli military withdrawal from populated areas of Gaza and the release of some hostages, while a permanent end to hostilities is negotiated through mediators. The White House did not immediately respond to a request for comment on the Israeli officials' remarks on Tuesday. Earlier, U.S. officials said they were reviewing Hamas's response, as did Qatar and Egypt. For months, negotiators from the U.S., Egypt, and Qatar have been trying to mediate a ceasefire in the enclave of 2.3 million people. Separately, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres on Tuesday said in a report to the Security Council that Israel's army and security forces, as well as Palestinian militants Hamas and Islamic Jihad, killed and maimed children in 2023. Israel is retaliating against Hamas, which rules Gaza, over an October 7th attack by its militants. More than 1,200 people were killed and over 250 taken hostage by Hamas during the raid, according to Israeli tallies. More than 100 hostages are believed to remain captive in Gaza. Israel launched an air, ground, and sea assault on the Palestinian territory, killing more than 37,000 Palestinians, according to Gaza health authorities. Gaza is in the grip of a humanitarian crisis due to widespread hunger, scarcities of essentials, infrastructure destruction, and continuing displacement of civilians. The U.S. military resumed bringing humanitarian aid into the enclave via a floating pier on Tuesday after a 2-day halt due to bad weather, 3 officials said. The pier was out of operation for 10 days for repairs and briefly reopened on Saturday. The UN still is not moving aid from the pier to warehouses while it reviews security. And that brings us to the end of our reading today of the Cape Cod Times for Wednesday, June 12th, 2024. We'd like to thank you for listening and have a great day.